Welcome to Inside the Program, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. I'm Joe Cook. That's Eric Nalin. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We have been bringing it every day here on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, and we bring it every day over on InsideTexas.com. So go use that first link in our description. Use that QR code at the top of the screen. Sign up for just $1. Tons of recruiting insight. Had a great piece yesterday over some in-state battles between Texas and Texas A&M, tons of visitor updates. We also have complete basketball and baseball coverage, and of course, the best team news and notes out there on Texas football. So that QR code at the top left of the screen, or use that first link in our description. And Eric, this morning, as off-season workouts are starting to come to a close for Texas, spring ball is rapidly approaching. Lots of progress has been made, mostly in the weight room. Progress has been made elsewhere, but the team seems like it's ready to get the pads on pretty soon.
Yeah, this is the second to last week of the winter offseason block. And, obviously anybody that's been paying close attention to Texas football the last 2.5 months has realized that Sark has been extremely busy. And the theme of this article was, hitting on the roster audit aspects that aren't as blatantly obvious as, hey, they brought in Will Muschamp, or they brought in 2 running backs to improve running backs that lacked dynamism last year. Some of the stuff we can't see with our naked eye, so we're trying to get a handle on that.
We can see some of it with the naked eye when we see it on the accounts that Texas posts, and we even get to see some of it at the NFL Combine. But those are guys moving on to their next stage in their career. We're talking about the players who are going to be wearing burnt orange next year, and they've been in the weight room, they've been on the field, running, lifting, doing a lot of different stuff. And there's been what's the right word? Not palatable, but actual progress. I was trying to get fancy. There's been
tangible.
Well, there we go. It was a T word. There's been tangible progress, but there's still progress left to go for Texas before the 2026 season fully rolls around.
Yeah, obviously you see some of these pictures. These guys look really good. That picture of John Turntine last week, and this week Tyler Atkinson had a picture. Obviously these guys are adding some size. I've heard, I've asked around a lot about strength gains, and what I've heard is, yes, they are making progress, but they're starting at a bit of a deficit, to where the numbers I'm hearing aren't exactly going to blow anybody away. Nobody's going to be competing for the world's strongest man at midnight on ESPN2 anymore. But I think they are making progress. It's needed. Maybe progress. Obviously, it's only been 5-6 weeks since they've been lifting weights. They're coming out of a long season where they only, the starters and the guys that travel only worked out twice a week. So they were starting at a lower point, and obviously, strength wasn't a big emphasis. So I think they do need to continue with the strength approach, after spring ball is done, and they need to be lifting during spring as well, so they don't lose all their gains. They're making progress, but this team isn't ready to take Georgia on head-to-head tomorrow, I don't think, at least not from that aspect.
That's probably for the best. Still got a good ways to go. One of the things that you noted is that even without maybe some of the strength progress that they're at least not getting to the place they want to be yet, they're still really, really explosive, as we saw the combine prove and some of the things you've heard lay out.
Yeah, I mean, they're always going to be explosive, and they are adding size. Tyler Atkinson is adding weight. Ty Anthony Smith, and he's looking good. The player actually that got mentioned first was Cade Phillips, who looks drastically different. Hopefully, we get a visual proof of that. But then, of course, they're always going to be fast. That's easy for them. I wouldn't say it's even an emphasis, because it doesn't have to be. What I wrote in the article was, it's a focus, but it's not the focus. They just think they've got it on lock. The proof is in the pudding on the combine. 2 linebackers running, 4.51, 4.5. What did Moore get on his second run? 4.54.
I think he was 4.54, because I think Bailey was number 1 at 4.51. So not too far behind a top 5 pick.
Yeah, and that they had him as an edge, but even as an off-ball linebacker, where he's going to play a bit of a hybrid role probably for whatever team that drafts him. And then Anthony Hill running 4.51. Jalen Gilbo probably going to surprise some people today. I think he'll run, low 4.4s. Interested what Taff and Muhammad do. But speed it's always a focal point, but not a focal point, because there's bigger fish to fry. They've got things that they need to make bigger improvements on.
That leads us perfectly into our next topic, focus on mental toughness and discipline. And We talk about pre-snap penalties all the time, and the problem that's been for Texas, and all the different things that the Longhorns. I think it seems like they've done it throughout the years, but this year specifically, they're really, really making discipline a big deal in the course of these workouts, making it a key part of the workouts, especially when it's really difficult.
Yeah, they're trying to do their best to simulate. So Texas is known for the grueling running regimen that they do, and they're trying to incorporate sort of the football aspects of that because, hey, if they're already physically tired or mentally tired or both, fatigued, let's call it fatigued, like they are in the fourth quarter, and you're prone to mistakes, let's try to duplicate that to the best of our ability and really get them some reps under tension to improve this aspect. Way too many penalties last year, and it wasn't just the offensive line. They're simulating game aspects of the game into their starts and things like that. But the one thing that Beckton's really honing in on is making the end of the workouts the most mentally taxing. And I think, that's something that they've tested for in the past. And I think they're going to, we didn't hear about that test last year. This test has sort of foreshadowed what the season is supposed to look like. We didn't hear about that test last year. That doesn't mean they didn't do it. We had heard about in previous years, and it was eerily close to how the season played out. I think we're going to hear about that test again, or I feel pretty confident that they're actually going to run it again this August. But obviously, they're focusing on a lot of the weak points from last year. Sark's audit, we're going to continue talking about it. It's hitting all the high points. Now, whether or not they fix it, to the degree they need to get over the hump, I'm not sure, but they're certainly taking full aim at it.
Before we keep going, got to show some love to our sponsor, that is Academy Sports and Outdoors.
You can't guard me? You need a break to L tonight. Do you need a break?
Ben! Your mom called. Looks like you're stuck with us tonight.
Let's go! Give me a shred.
For some reason, I can't pull it up on the side, but I saw Zayn Muhammad, Malik's brother, said he is fasting during the NFL Combine, and was curious what you thought his 40 time would be. Malik told Chris Sims and Mike Florio he was aiming for 4.35 to 4.4. Think he can hit that?
I guess 4.47 on the board, but I do. I didn't really like that guess. If he does 4.47, then Gilbo's probably in the 4. If he does low 4.4s, Gilbo's probably going to be in the 4.3s. But that would just feed into the point we're talking about. I think Muhammad is a better athlete than given credit for. How often was he ever beat deep? Maybe once on a double pass, but you never saw that guy beat deep. And a lot of sometimes we want to overemphasize his technical ability. He's a pretty good athlete too. But did you see his arms? He's got longer arms than Cassius Howell and a lot longer arms than Reuben Bain. And then his hands were bigger than both of theirs too, I think. So that's what we talked about, man. You could be big while being small.
Yeah, and then one more question before we get in the rest of the topic. Thank you, Utah Horn. Anywhere from an average offensive line to an above average offensive line, will that lead Texas to its best statistical offense since 2005? Am I crazy to think it could be more rounded than that offense?
I don't know about, because Vince. I mean, statistically, yeah. I mean, Vince only threw 26 touchdowns that year, right? I mean, he ran for a ton of yards too.
Yeah.
I think because it's Sark versus Greg Davis, yeah, you can see it statistically more explosive. Now, that's not going to register on the points because, the Big 12 was wide open there. You have to adjust for eras. It's like, the home run era, steroid era. The Big 12 in 2005 is a whole lot different than the SEC in 2025. But if you're talking about what's that?
The time rules that change. Yeah. Games are a lot shorter now. You can't build up as many of those. Aren't as many possessions as there was.
Yeah. So I think Arch is going to absolutely light it up. No doubt about it. I think the total yards per play is more important than total yards, of course. But I think we're going to see a very explosive offense this year. Better, right?
Yeah. That's the hope. One of the ways that offense can become a little bit more explosive, more well-rounded, is through being a little bit more physical. And that's not just at the outside, that's in the trenches. And again, all these different parts of the program audit we've been talking about, it's to make up for areas that lacked in 2025. And this is one of the big ones for not just, the offense, but the defense as well. And minds from both sides of the ball have been making sure this has been a focal point for Texas this offseason.
Yeah, the whole program is, it's a web. It's interconnected. It's all tied in together. It starts with Sark, and then he brings in Muschamp, and they're preaching it. It's a core tenet of the program. We've got to be more physical. We've seen some physical Texas teams in the past. Didn't quite see it last year, but it also ties into actual strength. You can be as mentally strong and ready to launch into somebody as much as you want, but you have to be able to back it up. With size and strength. So it's all connected. Becton is preaching it. Muschamp, of course. Sark's always wanted a tough physical team. That's where he's different from a lot of, quote unquote, mental or offensive gurus. He wants that physical team that, he was part of at USC and Alabama. So he gets it. But it's part of the audit, let's get him physical. Let's get him bigger. And then let's work on the mental side of it too, and demand it. It's a program requirement. I think it's trending in the right direction. Hey, are you muted?
I am. One last thing before we get out of here, just going over some general news and notes before we get to the spring ball finally arriving. You talked about some of the guys showing good speed numbers, miles per hour. We can do 40 times and 4.3, 4.4, all that stuff, but miles per hour is big. And there's been two newcomers, one from the high school ranks, one from the transfer ranks in the same position group who've done some good things here in off-season workouts.
Yeah, you've got Cohen Brown. I think we talked about him last week, though. He's running 22 miles an hour, which is kind of absurd. I think he's the only one we've really heard at that speed. I've heard Warren Roberson's getting after too, but you talk about that time of the season, it's kind of like the same thing in track where, these guys shouldn't be that fast, especially when they're trying to get bigger. They're eating more, they're coming out of the season where there's wear and tear. They're not really that fast. So to hear that he's already at 22 miles per hour is insane. Hey, I got a little preoccupied. Zaim, we need to hear more from you, man. How's it going in high school? If you're still on, let us know how it's going. What schools are you hearing from? Zaim is his younger brother. Zaim's in high school. I think Zaim's probably going into his sophomore year, I think, if I'm right. I don't know. It's been a while since I caught up with the family on him. But yeah, one of the interesting notes, and I lost my train of thought on what on there because I was thinking about Zaim here. Bo Masco is getting a look at Star, which I thought was really interesting. Now, the first thing you hear about that is because you got to bring physicality to bear. Is that he's a well put together guy, 190 plus pounds at around 5'10". So that's actually a good thing. 5'10", 190 can be a really dense athlete. And he's got the experience and the intelligence. And then if he's at Star, that would mean Grayson Littleton, who's also put on some weight, would be out there at corner. So I'm really interested to see how the secondary is going to shake out, because there's so many different bodies involved. There's varying degrees of experience level, but all of them have some degree of experience, and a lot of them have versatility. So the whole defensive side of the ball is just wide open depth chart. A lot of guys don't even have positional designations.
The one thing you were getting at about wide receiver, you talked about Cohen Brown, but the other one, the transfer edition,
yeah.
Of course, Cam Coleman. We'll be talking about that throughout the spring, but they made another transfer edition at wide receiver, and he showed some good things so far.
Yeah, Burkhalter, he's a big old dude and moving really well. I didn't get a speed time on him, but it looks normal for him to be 6'4", 215 in the way he moves. He moves smooth. That's a good indication, because those guys that they don't have to be blazing fast when they have that size. If I'm not saying he's Colin Johnson, but Colin was not a blazer, but he moved well at 6'5" and whatever he ended up getting to. Your size is the mismatch. You just have to move well enough to put him on your hip. And go make a play on the ball. Very excited what I'm hearing about Sterling Burkhalter. Really love the whole wide receiver room. But hey, man, Cam Coleman needs to miss a game or whatever. Go put him out there. You can play Cleek too, but Burkhalter's got a lot of experience, and I love that late addition. Just it's kind of it just lends credibility to the mindset of leave nothing to chance. Last year I think they learned some lessons on maybe they left a few many things to chance.
There are a few more notes in there. Encourage everybody to go check that out. But one more player you talked about who's had a big kind of opportunity, even without much football action going on, is KJ Lacey. Just because Arch, just now getting out of the boot, according to ESPN, had that offseason surgery. KJ, in whatever organized, or I don't want to say disorganized, official or unofficial activities, he's been getting a lot of reps with these receivers, and seems like he's just a player we've heard a lot of good things about from January to now early and now late February and heading into March?
Yeah. Well, first, this is how bad I am at my job. I didn't know we were on boot watch. I didn't know that we were tracking him in a boot. It was such a minor surgery. I didn't know anybody even cared, or that would make ESPN. Otherwise, I would have been, hey, it's Arch out of a boot. It's always precautionary. It was a stupid little procedure. I didn't know we were on boot watch, man. That's my bad. I dropped the ball on that. KJ is KJ's good. I talked the other day. I was like, look, man, I think that guy can easily be John Mateer or Marcel Reed. And, I'm not trying to slight anybody here, any of them. Some might think, hey, John Mateer's not that great, Marcel Reed, whatever. Those guys are decent, pretty good college quarterbacks. They're not going to win a national championship, but, those guys can make plays on Saturday. I think KJ Lacey's at least going to be in that sort of phylum of quarterback. Really love what I hear about his ability to throw the deep ball and then the improv. And yeah, he's leading that little offseason charge while he has while Arch has been sidelined with that boot watch. Again, I didn't know we were on boot watch. You got to keep me on the ball. When you said we're doing a report on ESPN, I was like, all these guys are in boots, man. They'll have a sore elbow and they'll put them in a boot. So I didn't
boot sponsorship now, right?
Yeah, we need to get we should be putting them. Luke Casey should have put them in, or Tecovas, or whoever wants to advertise on this channel. Feel free. I'll even get dudded up in some boots. KJ is a good player. I think he's going to be a good, capable backup. He still has to win that job, right? Because he brought in MJ Morris. But somebody on the board yesterday said he thinks that KJ is going to start in 27, and then 2028 is when it really fires up between Diabell and Lacey. And who knows? My response to that was, we didn't know who Trinidad Chambliss was until he got a chance, right? Trinidad made a lot of plays with one of KJ's strengths, which is improvisation.
One of the things that I always admired about KJ is after Ryan Williams left, his play didn't drop off. He was still really, really great at Saraland.
I never understood that criticism either, because he's going to be throwing to fast wide receivers. A lot of times the adjustment going from high school to college is you're actually throwing to real athletes. We already saw him throw a lot of very accurate deep balls to a fast athlete. Now, that's what you want, right? That's what he's about to be doing in college. So I didn't really understand that criticism because I don't care about the production. I'm watching the throw. I'm watching the ball in the air. And now I never understood that criticism.
Not too far away from spring ball. We'll have all the best insight over on Inside Texas. So make sure you use that first link in our description. Use that QR code at the top left of the screen. Join for $1. You can read Eric's full report. We'll have more recruiting intel later today about Texas and Texas A&M battles as that recruiting battle kind of comes back into play as both teams look in-state and out-of-state. Baseball, basketball, everything Longhorns we've got over on Inside Texas. So come check us out. Use that first link in our description. So Eric, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Inside the Program, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors.